The views and opinions expressed on America's Workforce Union podcast and its digital media channels are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of the producers or sponsors.
Welcome to the America's Workforce Radio Podcast, the flagship production of the American Workers Radio and Podcast Network, where organized labor and its never-ending fight to protect the rights of the American worker come first. Now, presented by LIUNA, Laborers International Union of North America. Here's your host, Ed Flash Ferentz.
Workers at 12 national parks vote to unionize. Staff cuts, the big issue. Meanwhile, IBEW members in Philadelphia plan a strike this Saturday, and it could be the first utility work stoppage in 145 years. Today on the show, the professional aviation safety specialists. Welcome to the Monday, June 29th edition of America's Workforce, where we are available on at least 5 platforms. That includes YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. David Spiro will be our featured guest on the show today. He serves as national president for the Professional Aviation Safety Specialist, best known as PASS. The website you want to go to is passnational.org, passnational.org. David has been on the show a number of times. And this is the time of the month where we focus on the Transportation Trades Department of the AFL-CIO. This is a collection of unions, and David's union is one of the 37 or 38 unions that make up the Transportation Trades Department of the AFL-CIO. A couple things we're going to get into: air traffic control modernization efforts, the techs at PASS, at the Federal Aviation Administration, are on the front lines of the administration's ambitious plans, and this is long overdue, to modernize the nation's air traffic control system. The good news is this: the FAA recently released a workforce plan for the techs that includes hiring, retention, and training. Now, PASS pushed for that plan through the FAA reauthorization going back to 2024, and Congress finally mandated that the FAA do something, release it, get it done. So we're going to talk about that. PASS is also advocating for training in advance of the new air traffic control systems being implemented. We're going to talk about all of this and obviously summer air travel all around the country, especially with those high gas prices right now. So David Spiro, National President of Professional Aviation Safety Specialists, our featured guest. Again, the website passnational.org. And now, a brief look into the world of labor. This segment brought to you by Boyd Watterson Asset Management. $38 billion of assets under advisement, serving the needs of Taft-Hartley funds, corporations, public funds, endowments, foundations, and religious organizations. You can find more at boydwatterson.com. Over 1,600 employees of PECO. What's PECO? That's the Philadelphia Electricity Company. They've announced plans to strike this Saturday, July 4th, in what could be the first work stoppage in the utility's 145-year history. That's right. Represented by IBEW Local 614, PECO's linemen, gas techs, call center workers, and mechanics have been negotiating a new contract for over 5 months, during which time the previous contract expired. The issues at the center of the dispute are wages, benefits, and retirement funds, with the union claiming that PECO workers make 30% less than their counterparts at other utilities in Pennsylvania as well as New Jersey. The workers rejected the company's proposed wage increase of 20% for linemen and 16% for call center employees over 5 years, which the utility described as fair. Now, PECO's 1.7 million ratepayers across 4 counties in Philadelphia brace for the impact of the work stoppage on the electric grid amidst preparations for the 250th anniversary celebrations on the 4th of July weekend. Timing is everything, right? Lawrence Anatasi, who is president of IBEW Local 614 said that the union did not take this situation lightly. And this is what he said. We know how important our work is. This is what happens when you don't share. Meanwhile, employees at 12 national parks, including Glacier National, voted to unionize with the National Treasury Employees Union. This would be Chapter 347. Over 650 workers joined their counterparts at Sequoia and Kings Canyon and Yosemite National Parks, all in organizing in response to staff reductions at the National Park Service. Due to federal worker layoffs and early retirements, Glacier has seen a 25% decrease in year-round staff since President Trump took office. The union will be open to all seasonal and permanent employees, including park rangers, scientists, and administration staff. Now, the final tally, that was 317-11, which Perry Sassnet, interim union officer and one of the employees at Glacier, said goes to show that workers want this. Workers want the protection of a union. Well, the Federal Labor Relations Authority is expected to certify that vote, and it could happen today. Yeah, a lot of problems with the national parks, especially when it comes to staffing. And this, of course, is a very, very busy time. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, David Spiro, National President of the Professional Aviation Safety Specialists.
You're listening to America's Workforce with Ed Flash Ferens.
It takes LiUNA to power North America with affordable energy. The men and women of LiUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, have the skills needed to build and maintain oil, natural gas, nuclear, solar, and wind projects that are shaping America's energy future. From new energy tech to retrofitted facilities, LiUNA members do it all. Find out what it takes to be powered by LiUNA at liuna.org. That's liuna.org.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Communication Workers of America. You can find more at cwa-union.org.
There is unity and strength for workers.
We are the USW.
We are the USW.
The United Steelworkers.
The largest industrial union in North America.
We represent 850,000 members in the U.S., Canada, and the Caribbean.
We work in metals,
rubber,
chemicals,
paper,
oil refining,
atomic energy, and the service sector.
We are steelworkers, standing strong and fighting for what's right.
This segment of the show is brought to you by the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. For more information, please visit bmwe.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers. You can find more at ifpte.org.
American workers are sick of struggling to get by. It's time to get ahead. In the Teamsters Union, workers are winning industry-leading contracts, historically high wages, fully paid health care, and retirement benefits you can count on. Across the country, Teamsters fight alongside our brothers and sisters to secure a better life. It's what we've been doing and how we've been living for more than a century. When we fight, we win. Join us. Be a Teamster.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Iron Workers. You can find more at ironworkers.org.
America's Workforce is sponsored in part by Boyd Watterson Asset Management, LLC. Find out more about our investment solutions tailored to meet the needs of Taft-Hartley funds at boydwatterson.com.
America's Workforce appreciates our sponsor, the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council, who represents more than 18,000 workers from 19 affiliated local unions and district councils.
America's Workforce Radio is sponsored in part by the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, District Council 6, representing painters, glazers, drywall finishers, and sign and display industry workers. They remind you that belonging to a union is your right as an American.
The Heat and Frost Insulators and Allied Workers are proud to be a title sponsor for America's Workforce Radio. The Insulators Union is leading the way in the mechanical insulation industry, fire stopping, and infectious disease control. Regarded as North America's energy conservation specialist, These professionals are known for their professional work and dedication. You can learn more about the Insulators Union at insulators.org.
Now, back to America's Workforce. Here's Ed Flash Ferens.
And don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook or follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter. That would be AWF Union Podcast. AWF Union Podcast. Well, we are in the summer travel season. Sadly, those costs have gone up because of diesel fuel prices and what's been happening in the Middle East. But the people behind the scenes that we're talking about today, and joining us on our live line is David Spiro. David is the national president of a great organization. He's been on the show a number of times. It's called PASS National, Professional Aviation Safety Specialist. PASSnational.org is the website. Like I said, they're behind the scenes. They're trying to make sure that the air traffic control system is safe. And this is something that needs to be updated. David, welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining us. Well, I'm just wondering, are we moving the needle on this? We have heard the administration talk about air traffic controllers. In fact, they're targeting, I talked about this a couple of months ago. Apparently, they've gone to YouTube and they've reached out. They're still reaching out to young people who are gamers. They figure, well, if you're a gamer, maybe you could be an air traffic controller. I don't even know if I want to get into that conversation. But again, talk to me about making sure at least the equipment and the people running the equipment have what they need. David, it's all yours. Go ahead, brother.
Hi, Flash. Always good to be with you. Thank you for inviting me on. So, I've been on several times, and we've talked about the airway transportation system specialist, the technical workforce that maintains, certifies, repairs the electronic systems in air traffic control. The automation system, we talk about those flashing lights out on the airports, all the navigational aids, communications that pilots and controllers use. And I've talked about a workforce plan. We need a workforce plan for these people. We need to know how many. We're badly understaffed. We need to know how many we need. Well, lo and behold, the Congress back in January passed a part of the appropriations bill that required FAA to submit a workforce plan to Congress no less than 60 days after the president's budget came in, which was in late March. In May, we got in what we call an ATSS workforce plan. Some of the things that we've been talking about over time are now being remedied in that plan. They're going to hire another 750 technicians over the next 2 years. That's the plan. We'll monitor to make sure they are and report to Congress if they're not. And I talk about the punch out, punch in mentality. Somebody that's been around for 40 years, they retire, they walk away, and then we hire a new person. And we triple the workload on the person that's left in the middle, that picks up the work and has to train the new person. They've got a provision now that allows them to hire in advance of someone retiring. They're determining that the workforce needs to be either certified professional technicians or trainees. So we draw a line between who's actually supposed to be working on the equipment and who's supposed to be learning it. A real step forward. It's not perfect. Obviously, there's some things in there we'd like to continue to work on, especially what does training look like going forward. It's a big step, and we're happy, and we're happy FAA did it. We're proud that we had some influence over the years in making it get to where it is.
You mentioned the workforce plan and then the budget. Does the budget, in your opinion, support the workforce plan? Is there enough money for this?
Well, that's a great question. As far as we can see right now, FAA is making the provisions within its budget, and then going forward, we'll see what they ask for in 27 and 28 to make that happen. But at this point right now, they've got an open advertisement on the street to hire what we call 2101s, electronic technicians in reality, but they're airway transportation system specialists. So anybody that's listening out there, it's got that kind of background and wants to work for the FAA and the federal government, they should apply for one. But this is it's a great question, because this is really part of the strategy. You can't really go to Congress and ask them for hundreds of millions of dollars to hire people if you haven't made a justification how many people you actually need. And that was part of what we kept saying to Congress, what we kept saying to FAA. How can you justify not only to Congress, but to finance and internally to OMB and the DOT? How can you tell those folks we need more money for technicians when you haven't explained exactly why. So this is a huge opportunity now going forward to be able to establish that financial pillar.
You mentioned 750 techs in the next 2 years. That's what the workforce plan is spelling out. Is that enough? And if you had a choice, if it's not enough, what should that number be?
Well, it remains to be seen. I think that there's another facet to this, and that is what they call the tech ops staffing model. So internally, they mash up a lot of numbers on the type of work that our folks do, how much time they spend doing it, the time out on the road, traveling in across the countryside to get to some of these navigation facilities. We don't necessarily believe all the math that's being put into those algorithms is either complete or correct. So we're going to we've got a person that works on that team that's very skilled, understands the math, and we're going to continue to press now going forward that they refine that plan, that tech ops staffing model, and make sure that the math is correct so that what it spits out is actually what we need.
So, David, this is a call for action. If anybody wants to be a professional aviation safety specialist, well, now's the time to do it. How long does it take? How long does it take? If I signed up today, okay, how long will it take for me to be a fully certified technician?
Well, I think depending on your background and where you came from, if you came from, let's say, from the military and been working on navigational aids and radar and that specific genre of electronic equipment, it'll take you less time. But it'd take you at least 2 years, 2 to 3 years to get familiar. And plus, you have to get familiar with the way the FAA does its work. I mean, it's as simple as also knowing your way around an airfield, how to get to where you need to go, what's the right administrative procedures to follow. All that is another thing that happens in the world of learning how to fix equipment and how to be certified. Plus, you have to go to school. You have to get on-the-job training. You have to go through a certification exam. And there are multiple systems that you need to be able to do that on. When I was a technician, I probably had 20 certifications that I carried on various types of systems.
Let's talk about the system now. You and I had many conversations over the years about the fact that it's antiquated and what we're dealing with. I mean, I understand our smartphones have more technology than what the air traffic controllers have to deal with. And you're dealing, again, with the people behind the scenes, the people that maintain the equipment there. The equipment obviously has to be upgraded. Where do we stand with all that now? You mentioned the beginning of the year here, the FAA authorization or reauthorization bill took a look at this. Where do we stand right now?
They got $12 billion from the Congress to upgrade what they call the brand new air traffic control system, the BNATS, which is a really odd acronym, but that's what they've been calling it. And for some reason now it's starting to roll off everyone's tongue. It wasn't that way in the beginning. There are several systems out there that they're working on and they're replacing. Radar systems, communication systems, telecommunications infrastructure, a variety of different things, and they're moving rather quickly at it, and that's great. I think one of the shortcomings of that is they're going so quickly that they've not yet trained our folks on how to repair some of it. So they're utilizing some of the contractors that are installing the equipment to do that for a period of time until they catch up with us. I've been advocating very strongly with the FAA that not only is it a good idea to train our folks for the long term, but they're going to install a couple of hundred new radar systems and communication systems at the switches at the centers, TRACONs, towers across the country. We could be of great value if we're trained in advance in implementing those systems and keeping the program on time and maybe even ahead of schedule. Without our ability to be able to do all of that, it's eventually going to cause probably a bit of a logjam at some point. And we're the folks that are going to be charged with the long-term care and feeding and of these electronic systems, these radars, these automation systems, everything that's coming. Let's get ahead of ourselves now and train everybody. Great step forward in replacing equipment, but let's take that step also and train the folks before we go ahead and turn the switch on.
David, with all the zigzag that's been going on, changes of administrations, I have to ask you how the membership is holding up with all of this. And obviously there's a lot of change going on now because they're trying to upgrade this, and there's a call out for new techs. But getting back to the question, how's everybody holding up at Pass National?
Highs and lows, and I think that part of my job is to make sure we stay on the even flow, right? Don't get too high, don't get too low. Sometimes things go really great, sometimes they don't. We have legal challenges, we have better fights, and like I point out with the workforce plan, that's a great victory. So, but we can't get out of ourselves. We can't worry about some of the things we cannot control. Sometimes we go through the legal process, we do the things that we need to do. The membership is hanging in there, and I think they do see some signs of hope on occasion. This is one of them. We got at the same time, we got a workforce plan for our aviation safety inspectors, and that number's flat over the next 10 years. Right? They're not hardly hiring any, and in that period of time, we're going to get into unmanned aerial systems. We're going to have to oversee the drone world, what they call Part 108. That's a whole other thing. And it's going to take a lot of expertise. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of skill. So they're going to have to, they can't just look at that plan and say, well, we're not going to do anything about it. We've got to be able to hire more inspectors as well. So that's the other battle, right? One high and one low.
David, if you don't mind, I want to elaborate on what you just said about the unmanned aircraft systems, because almost every day I'm watching the news, I see like near misses, and now you're talking about drones that I guess, is it all unregulated right now, especially when it comes to unmanned aircraft?
So no, because that's what that Part 108 is. That's the regulation in place for unmanned aerial systems. But it is a new frontier. And sometimes you don't know what you don't know. You plan for the worst and hope for the best. And so I think that's the point behind regulations. But we've got to be able to get training on it. When you refer to the things at the airports, there's a lot of notoriety for sure out there in the media. You see a lot of things happening. For our part, I mean, our inspectors, they go out and investigate accidents and incidents on airports when that sort of stuff happens. If the NTSB is not out there on the ground, they're the ones that secure the area. They're the ones that begin the investigation, gather data. But from our technician perspective, one thing that we've been looking at is making sure that we've got the training and skill and expertise to drive around out on those airfields. That's a whole different field of safety, making sure that we have the awareness of where airplanes are and what's happening, and making sure that we've got the right training and experience to be out there on the airfield. I've been out there, and I remember my first time, driving out in Buffalo, New York for the very first time. And when you're by yourself, you're squeezing that steering wheel and your knuckles are white because you're not driving around cars anymore. You're driving around airplanes.
Right.
Your sense of orientation isn't the same as it is on the road. Looking at it from the level field as opposed from up in the air, it's got a whole different taste to it.
Wow. Well, I'm sure we're going to have many more conversations on this very issue. Safety is paramount, no matter what. If you're working on the job, if you're dealing with airplanes, I mean, obviously there's a lot of travel going on right now. People need to know that everything is going to be safe, and that's where you come in. David Spiro, National President, Professional Aviation Safety Specialist. Here's the website you want to go to, Pass National. That's all one word, passnational.org. You take care, stay safe, stay in touch, okay, brother?
Thanks, Flash. Always a pleasure to be with you.
And that'll be it for another edition of America's Workforce. Tomorrow on the show, the iron worker from northeastern Ohio running for a seat in the U.S. House. Until then, all of you have a safe and wonderful day.
That concludes another episode of the America's Workforce Radio Podcast. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a show. America's Workforce is a production of Labor Tools and BMA Media Group. Find out more information online at labortools.com.